So, hello and welcome to another episode of the Turn 5 podcast. Just the three of us this week. It's myself, Ben, and Nia. Chris has gone MIA. Much like George's engine reliability. We're getting that one in early. This week, we are obviously talking about all of the action from Formula 1, Formula 2, and Formula 3 from the Australian Grand Prix weekend. And what a weekend it was. Oh my God. We'll start with the Formula 1. And I think besides the race, there's only really one thing I wanted to cover, and that was Sergio Perez's problems because the man couldn't brake.
Yep.
What was going on there? He didn't set a time. He binned it in qualifying. He ended up starting from the pit lane because Red Bull took the opportunity to just change all the components they could, or were bothered to. I mean, yeah, exactly. Put him in the pool, you know. And Bottas started in the pit lane alongside him, so he wasn't alone. Best friends forever. But like, what was going on with that car? It seemed all right the next day, but just all the way through practice up until that point, something was wrong, clearly, because he kept locking it up so many times. I mean, on the Friday, less so. On the Friday, his issue was more traffic, because he kept running across people while he was on a flying lap. I remember at one point he came across, I think it was Zhou, and he was 4/10 up on the current fastest time, and then just got had to slam on the brakes because there's just an Alfa Romeo in the middle of the road. But yeah, Saturday was not Sergio's day. Sunday, I mean, he did all right.
Where did he end up?
5th.
Oh, yeah.
But I think I said this to I was chatting with Mel while the race was on because we were awake, and I said that it was going to be like Sergio's drive was going to be like, it was going to determine whether he was going to be like Max or if he was going to be like Valtteri, in terms of when Lewis started at the back in that Mercedes of yesteryear, he would be at the front pretty quickly. But when Valtteri started at the back, he'd get to about P6, then start coming up behind the faster cars and get a bit stuck. And that's what happened with Perez. Whereas we saw it last time out, Max was 15th to 1st in 24 laps. Perez finished 5th. Now, okay, there's some mitigating circumstances, red flags, safety cars, blah, 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 but it's still...
that could help you out as well.
Exactly.
It brings the cars closer together.
Especially the later red flags caught him up.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
It's one of those ones where it's kind of... I know he got driver of the day because he was the one being shown broadcast on overtakes and everything, but was it really that fantastic?
It was okay, but was it good enough?
He's in a rocket ship. Yeah. Max has shown that it is a rocket ship. Perez now needs to match it.
Yeah.
Which he just can't
Danny right behind, just beaming in.
It's just smiling over his shoulder, rubbing his hands together with his $18 million from McLaren. Also, it was nice to see Danny Rick back in the paddock. He looked much happier. Did you see who else was back in the paddock this weekend?
Yes.
Big up the Michael Massive in the paddock for the first race weekend since he left as a race director at the end of the 2021 season. And what do we get? A 2-lap sprint race at the end.
What is he? What role is he now?
I think he was race director of one of the sports categories.
Yeah,
wasn't he?
V8 supercars.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So he was there in a official capacity.
Yeah. I thought it would be not just turned up.
I mean, it's his home race. Just like, what's up, guys? Come to throw some spice in for the Netflix. But yeah, so I mean, Perez struggled. He did okay. He got 5th. In his words, that was damage limitation. And I mean, he got fastest lap as well. So
It needs to not do that again.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't really afford to put foot wrong when you're going against Max in this in this absolute rocket ship of a Red Bull. Let's start with the start of the race, shall we? We all kind of got through turn 1, 2 okay. And then we hit turn 3, and there was a Ferrari facing the wrong way in the gravel trap. Instant reaction. Carlos, no. He's binned it earlier than last time. Unfortunately, it was Charles who's had an absolute stinker of an opening year. But absolute fair credit to Charles. His post-race interview was classy and very measured. He'd obviously seen the replays and Lance's perspective because, okay, Lance clipped Charles's right rear and that's what spun him out. But Lance literally had nowhere to go. He had Fernando on his inside. Charles turned in from the outside. I mean, Charles had to turn in to make the corner eventually. 3 into 1 doesn't go, as everyone in commentary said. And Charles lost out. But he admitted that he wasn't blaming Lance for it because Lance couldn't have done anything about it. It was just one of those things, which I think is very measured. He did then go on to say it is the worst start of the year he's ever had, which I think is fair enough and a wholly accurate summation.
But he couldn't really do anything about it.
No, exactly.
I know he done well in 2020, didn't he? Because even though he had an awful car, he was still somehow getting good results.
Yeah, kind of a complete polar opposite of last year's race. Pole, win, fastest lap, led every lap. Gravel trap turn 3. Not ideal. So we had the safety car for that, obviously, because Leclerc was beached, needed to get the car out of the way. Fair enough. Bit too early for any really extreme stuff. But we saw some pit stops though.
Yeah, you've seen all the people at the back, like Perez,
taking a gamble,
Bottas, and Sargent, I think.
But then we made it to lap 8, and all of a sudden we cut to a Williams that's just shredded itself. As we find Alex Albon rear end on the racing line. Bit touch and go there. Especially, did you see Hulkenberg's on board?
Yeah, that was scary.
That's squeaky bum time.
Because
there's just
there's coming out of the gravel trap.
There's the cloud of dust from the gravel trap, and there's just suddenly a car there, and it's like, oh, not good. Don't want to hit that. So
not ideal.
No, exactly. So, but then we got a safety car, which I understood. Fine. People chose to make pit stops. Carlos Sainz and George Russell, highest up in the order among those. And then we got a red flag. Was like the reason they gave was for the sheer amount of gravel.
There was a lot.
There was a lot.
And it was on both sides of the track as well.
It was covering the racetrack. But the cars that had gone through it immediately had kind of cleared tracks in it.
They've cleared the racing line.
Exactly. So what I'm saying is, could they have called a safety car, let them keep going through that side while they sweep the other side, then flip, and they go over that side that's now clear while they sweep the racing line? Probably would have taken a few laps.
It's probably just easier just to go everyone in the pits, let them sort that out.
Yeah, I just found it a bit strange.
Trying to get all the engineers to say, like, go on that side of the track, and there's Marshall's going to be on the other side of the track.
I think it's the safety of it.
Yeah, that's fair.
And it's just a lot easier to communicate to drivers, like, you're not going pits, they're clean track.
Yeah. I was a bit confused as to why the red flag was flown at first, because I thought it was going to be for the barrier. But
yeah, it's normally for the barrier.
Yeah, it's normally just to put it back to where it should be, because obviously it's moved and therefore it's crash survivability, efficiency, protectiveness. I don't know. We're just going to throw words out there and hope one of them sticks. Has been compromised by the fact that it's not in its intended location. So that's kind of what I thought. So I was a bit intrigued and slightly confuzzled as to why it was gravel, but upon replays, it was a lot of gravel. Then we had the restart, which was kind of timid by all standards. Kind of okay-ish, few moves, nothing major.
As compared to the last restart.
Well, actually, the lap to the grid was where more of the drama happened, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, because Lewis like slow up and whatever.
Now I have the steward's decision on that here, and because they investigated it, obviously, it was an alleged breach of Article 58.8. I'm just putting my Chris hat on here. Of the F1 sporting regulations, which is failing to follow the safety car no more than 10 car lengths. But decision, no further action. For a race to resume with a standing start behind a safety car, Article 58.8 of the regulations require the cars to follow the safety car no more than 10 car lengths apart. Okay, so Max is technically correct in when he says that's more than 10 car lengths. It also then says the first car in line behind the safety car may dictate the pace and, if necessary, fall more than 10 car lengths behind it. Don't know why that specific section's in quoted italics, but it is.
Because they've just written nonsense, really. So how do you know what's necessary?
Well, exactly. It wasn't necessary. They were all complaining.
It wasn't necessary either.
The hypocrisy of it is that they were all complaining that the safety car is going too slow, and then Lewis goes slower. I know it's then so he can go faster and generate more heat in it, but can we at least do it on a section of the circuit that means that the back of the field doesn't end up at a blind corner? So you've got 6 cars in a car park and then K-Mag going straight across the gravel, because that was the most dangerous bit.
That's literally stopped for like a second.
Yeah, like if you're going to allow them to dictate the pace, they have actually said in the article, we do consider that part of the problem is the regulation that permits the lead car to set the pace even when a restart is for a standing start from the pit lane as opposed to a rolling start. This should perhaps be looked at in the future to see if it is appropriate for a restart of this nature. Basically, they said they might look at it, but they're probably not going to, let's be honest.
You can't be asked to look at that.
They won't look at it until someone arsends someone.
Yeah.
We've been there before.
So, once again, the FIA doing nothing until it's after the fact.
Until it's a major issue.
Yeah. Classic FIA, am I right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, restart, blah, blah, blah. Few laps go by. We're thinking, all right, Max has pulled out a gap. He's got past Lewis at this point. He's trundled off into the distance. He's got like 3 or 4 seconds on him, which is ever growing. And then suddenly, George's name starts dropping down the timemeter. And you're thinking, hang on a minute.
Yep.
He's not scheduled for a pit stop. And on my driver tracker, he's nowhere near the pit lane. What's going on here? And then he rolls past the pit lane because Lance Stroll helpfully overtook him on the outside of turn 13, meaning he couldn't go into the pit lane. So then he pulls up in the pit lane exit and his car's on fire. Quite badly as well. Nice little mechanical DNF for Mercedes there.
It's his first one for Mercedes as well.
It is. It is. As lovingly dropped in commentary by Crofty.
Yep.
Who reminded us of Silverstone, and that wasn't mechanical DNF.
That's just him going, wee, bang.
Here, take this.
Yeah. That was him being chick hits again.
Yeah, true. So obviously, with George being in the pit lane exit, the pit lane entry was closed. It was only a VSC I think, because it was easy enough. It was out of the firing line. They can just put the car out and push it back. It was out of the way in a couple of laps, nice and easy. Then we settled into a period of every lap you get a replay of a Perez overtake, because for some reason they didn't just sit live with him when he got to the section. They just showed you after the fact. They did live a couple of times, but most of the time they cut to it too late.
Yeah.
Good job, race direction.
Well, we had to see Verstappen just drive around and Hamilton be like 5 seconds down the road.
Yeah, to be fair, we did see some midfield
Alonso.
action. It was just,
wasn't it? It was Hamilton and Alonso.
Yeah, that was quite a good battle, but as Alonso said, he couldn't really push him into making a mistake, so it didn't really come to anything. I think the end of the VSC was sort of killed it off a bit, because he was pushing him, and then the VSC got called, and then he lost DRS. And that was it. Then there was the usual round of pit stops and malarkey and whatnot, and then K-Mag tapped the wall, and his wheel flew off. Well, his tyre flew off the wheel, and a few other bits, and a fan was injured.
Oh.
Which I found about today. A piece of carbon fibre went over the debris fence and lacerated someone's arm. They're
wasn't
fine,
able to keep.
by the way.
Someone else
nabbed the
well.
carbon fibre.
It's broken!
Savage. But obviously, wish them well.
The defence clearly doing its job.
Well, that's the thing. It was a rare accident in terms of the debris went like 20 meters up. And the debris catching fences are FIA homologated things, so that's the same at every circuit you go to.
Yeah. And they can't make them stupidly high either.
Well, exactly. Then they'd just flex in the wind, and we'd have one windy day at Melbourne, and half the track's blocked because the catch fence is down, or there's a mass incident because the catch fence has fallen on the crowd.
Yeah.
You can't have it both ways. But that brought out another red flag.
Yeah.
Which I was more confused of than the Albon one. I know there was a fair amount of debris, but at the same time, we've cleaned up worse under a safety car.
Yeah, but I was still fine. I love a 2-lap sprint race at the end.
You're just like Netflix's little right-hand man, aren't you?
I will die on a hill for 2-lap sprint races at the end of the race.
They are quite good.
They're so good.
Look, it was all right. Look, but at the same time, I want to keep the FIA to standards.
I don't want to finish behind a safety car.
Well, no, neither do I. But at the same time, I don't want contrived action for the sake of contrived action. The amount of carnage that was produced because a red flag was flown instead of following the safety car.
Yeah, but that was driver error as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, but at the same time,
it's probably best. I mean, for the drivers would probably maybe say it as well. They'd prefer to just do like a 2-lap shootout rather than sit behind the safety car for 2 laps when it's they're pointless by then.
You think to Monza last year.
The drivers would all say they'd rather go racing, but
that's why the 2-lap shootouts are better.
Yeah, but if that had happened 10 laps earlier, it'd have just been a safety car, Yeah,
because they had enough laps afterwards to race.
Then that's the thing. You're taking into account the lack of time. It's just just leave it. Just let the result be the result. It's fine.
Well, they basically did that because.
Yeah. So
some people couldn't have some clean racing.
I'm trying to like remember the whole sequence of events of the third restart. Second restart, third start. Logan Sargent locked up and
that was right at the end.
Rear-ended De Vries. Yeah, I'm kind of working my way through it. All right. So that was all happening in the background.
That was awful from Sargent as well.
Yeah,
it was truly awful.
While the Spanish Civil War raged in the foreground, and then the French Civil War kicked off.
Yeah, to avoid it, I think.
And then Mexico just flew around the outside through the gravel. And then Canada went straight on into the gravel trap at 3.
That is the biggest Lance Stroll.
I'm going to get a podium. No, you're not.
No. Yeah.
I forgot Stroll was Canadian. I was like, where the fuck did Latifi come in?
No, there was more than one.
I forgot he's Canadian.
But like, and then okay, Carlos's incident was penalty worthy.
Yes,
but flipping the order back means that I think he should only be given the penalty points, not the time.
I don't think he should be given either. Well, I think if you give Carlos a penalty, then you send the Astons to the back. Because you can't say that didn't happen because it did.
What I'm saying is, like, you've recognized that the driver has done, in the regulations wording, unsafe driving and penalized them for it, but you've not penalized them any more than any other cars have because you've undone everything. So I think 2 penalty points, but no time penalty, which would be a complete first in the world of penalizing drivers in mid-race. But I think that would have been fair. Or even just a 3-place grid trap at the next race.
Yeah, I think that would make a bit more sense.
That was fair enough.
But like,
they don't Carlos so dirty.
They have.
Yeah.
I think we need to sort of embrace football in a way with VAR, because if you have a penalty or a foul that is being checked by VAR, and then you go up the other end and there's another foul, that one's given, but then VAR check the first one and give that, you go back and ignore the second one. Any yellow cards that were given for that second one get rescinded and you go back. But we didn't rescind the yellow card. We kept the yellow card and we went back. Which is wrong. Admittedly, this is a very niche situation to be in, but if the rules can't cope with niche situations, the rules aren't thorough enough.
It was wrong.
Yeah.
But still, it's wrong.
Sargent
should be given a penalty as well.
Yeah, actually.
He's got away with murder.
Has he been given a penalty? He hasn't.
Was he even investigated?
No. He's not been summoned. Like, you've got the final starting grid, then you've got a summons for Gasly and Ocon, provisional race classification.
Yeah, that's unlucky.
I mean, it's Gasly's fault, really, isn't it?
Yeah, but I don't think Gasly would have been able to see Ocon, because I think Ocon would have just been in his blind spot.
Yeah, but at the same time, if you know you're going that slowly off the corner, kind of expect someone to be there. He got unlucky that it was the teammate. Alpine were on for a cracking result. What a shame.
Yep, unlucky. We've actually had a bit of luck.
Yeah. Let me guess. They've decided that no further action to take place. Yeah, no further action. Both cars recognised and accepted that it was a racing incident. Basically, we don't want to penalise our own team, so let it go, FIA. If that had been any other driver, I think Gasly would have gotten a penalty there. I mean,
if Carlos got a penalty.
Exactly. You can't be saying it's a first lap incident when it's happened the corner after the non-first lap incident penalty. Like, come on.
If they give Gasly a penalty for that, it's so harsh.
And Sainz's wasn't.
Yeah, that was
come on. Your consistency, it's going to be hammered down. And then we had we finally got to the end of the race after much deliberation after the third red flag. When was the last time we had 3 red flags in a race?
We haven't.
Oh, good. Nice.
That's the first time.
New records.
Technically, that was 4 as well.
Well, that last lap, where they just did it behind the safety car.
Yeah, because they hadn't technically completed 300 kilometers race distance.
Yeah. Couldn't they have just abandoned the race by then? Because again,
no, because they wouldn't have finished the race.
You need to finish the race. So
and
as much it is
within the time limit, weren't they?
Yeah, as much as it is processional, it's
they have to do it.
Regulations.
Yeah.
Which is funny that they'll follow those regulations, but not some others.
Consistency is key.
Exactly. But we had a rather interesting moment at the end of the Grand Prix where there were spectators on the circuit.
During the
final lap. Yeah.
Yeah.
You actually had other fans say, "Get off the track."
Yeah.
That's good.
Which resulted in the Australian Grand Prix. What's the C stand for?
Corporation.
Good lad. Being summoned to the stewards. Not every day you see the Grand Prix Corporation called to stewards, but they've basically got off with we'll make changes for next year, I promise. And this is what we plan to do.
They've gone very West Country.
No, they've just gone very sheepish. Get it? Because the West Country has a lot of sheep in it. I'm really funny.
We're supposed to talk about sports series.
Formula 2 and Formula 3. Hell yeah, you thought F1 was chaotic. Just you wait. But first, we've got to go over some predictions and such. Also, we should say that we don't condone track invasions, and that was a complete farce from track security at the time. So, Australia, get it together.
I saw a video someone posted of a tractor lifting a car up, and there were people running underneath it and towards the tractor. It's like, get out the way!
Yeah. Yeah, they were still picking up De Vries's car out of the gravel, and Hulkenberg. Was it Hulkenberg's car? Yeah, because Hulkenberg pulled over at the end.
I think it was De Vries's car I saw, and it's like
got Norris swearing at the crowd.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, that was funny.
How's Russia going? Right, predictions. Between Perez quali and the general chaotic state of the race, we've had a bit of a stinker on the old prediction front.
I think that was a bit of a given.
Where would you like to start? Bold it is.
We've got that right.
Wow, the royal we from Ben.
Pole. I said pole.
Oh, pole.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you said bold.
No.
Okay,
let's not talk about that.
Pole, everyone said Verstappen. Everyone was correct.
Yeah.
Including Ash Mason, who came in with a last-minute clutch-up social media prediction. In joint second place is Ben, Chris, Nia, and Sonia.
She put Alonso.
Because you guys all put Verstappen to win the race. So you ended up with 4 points each.
Ooh.
And then winning is me and Ash Mason, who predicted the same thing of Verstappen, Perez, Alonso, which means we both got 7 points this week, which means my championship standing lead extends to 5 points over Chris.
Why did I say Stroll as a joke?
I mean, you almost got it for a little bit there, didn't you?
Yeah, and then he strolled it, didn't he?
Yeah, and then it got reset anyway, so you still got your bold prediction.
Yeah, he done it right. You got 4th, I'll take,
Yeah.
It's a solid Stroll performance.
So moving on to bold prediction. Ben, Stroll top 5. Yes.
Oh, get in.
Chris said a penaltyless race. Almost had it until Carlos Sainz.
Oh.
Nia, you said both Alpha Tauris in the points. Logan Sargent says hello. And I said a starting grid penalty. Thanks FIA for widening the grid boxes by 20 centimeters and announcing it on the Wednesday.
You see Verstappen as well. He was so close to
He
going
was
over the white line.
so on the front of that grid box. When I saw that, I was fuming. Just another centimeter, lad. Just another centimeter, and I get that prediction. He gets 5 seconds, and it does nothing. But I get that prediction point. Yeah. But no, he couldn't roll it forward, could he? So inconsiderate. Lapdown showdown, disaster class from everyone.
You said Piastri, so that's on you.
Hey, you said De Vries.
It's better than Piastri. He was at the back until he got absolutely yeeted by Sargent.
Everyone except you said Piastri, so it's not just me.
Yeah.
And anyway,
to McLaren.
I was closest on the number of laps, and everyone was wrong because he DNF'd. It was Logan Sargent. He got overtaken on lap 39, and he DNF'd. So, yeah, we sucked. Anyway, F2. It rained for quali. It was wet.
When it rains, it pours.
But we had Ayumu Iwasa on pole by a whopping 0.6 of a second. And then between second and third, which is both ART cars of Théo Pourchaire and Victor Martins, 0.004 of a second. How close would you like your teammates? Yes. Then Isaac Hadjar and Zane Maloney rounded out top 5. Interesting quali. Not quite as interesting as the F3 quali. How quickly would you like your red flag? 10 corners. Sprint race. Obviously, the top 10 gets flipped. So Dennis Hauger started on sprint race pole. Dennis Hauger won from sprint race pole. Rest of the podium was Jack Crawford and Kush Miney. We only had 18 finishes. It was mixed conditions. Oh yeah, 17. Théo Pourchaire's DNF technically. Yeah. Was mixed conditions to the point that those at the back of the field were gambling and had wet tires on. But it was commentary said it's too wet for dries and it's too dry for wets. Nice. Casual F2 things. But then we had the actual Grand Prix on the Sunday. This was at 2:30 our time. I was still up. I stayed up the whole night. I managed to push myself back to California time for this to work. So I was going to bed at like 8, 9 a.m. Actually, that's the point. The race started at 6 and it's normally only 90 minutes. I was like, I'll be in bed by 8. Easy. 9 o'clock rolls around. Dying.
I woke up just in time for the last lap and I was so confused. I woke up while the last red flag was still happening. And I was like, oh yeah, okay, last lap shootout, still the safety car. I was like, what the f is that? So in work, I was polishing cutlery. I just stood there with my phone just on the needing to get some latte glasses to try to catch up with what the hell's happening.
Yeah, I kind of nodded off in the middle and then got woken up by the commentary reaction to K-Mag tyre. So that was an interesting bit. Anyway, Formula 2, really early in the morning, was great fun. Complete chaos. Yeah, we still had 18 finishes. Dennis Hauger is on the sheet, but he DNF'd after 30 laps. Also, absolutely rest in peace, Dennis Hauger, because he was in a podium position and got punted on a safety car restart.
Oh.
And that was with 3 laps to go.
Oh, God.
Victor Martins received a 10-second time penalty for absolutely sending Dennis Hauger into the shadow realm. Yeah. The stewards determined that car 6 hit car 1 from the rear in the braking zone of turn 13, causing car 1 to spin. Car 6 was wholly responsible for the contact. Correct. That's exactly how it was. Which meant that he lost places anyway, but he ended up 18th. So last on the road. There was also a bunch of post-race penalties. 3 drivers were penalised post-race. Here we go. Roman Stanek received a 5-second time penalty for overtaking Kushmani during the safety car period. The second safety car period, to be specific, because like Formula 1, there was more than one safety car incident. Basically, they determined that he overtook after the cars had reached the second safety car line. So, unfortunately for him, that meant he got demoted out of the final points-paying position, dropped from P10 to P14. Ollie Behrman received a 10-second time penalty for failing to serve his 5-second time penalty correctly. And he fell to P17. And then we've already discussed Victor Martins shunting. Classic. Yeah, the Behrman one was interesting because he got given that penalty quite early on in the race, and then they did their pit stop, but they didn't do any 5 seconds. They didn't even try. They just went straight. They just went straight for the pit stop, and I thought, did they just go for time at the end? But I thought they were supposed to do it then. Turns out you're supposed to do it then. Having considered the matter extensively, failed to serve his penalty, blah, blah, blah. As the team and not the driver is wholly responsible, no penalty points are around. Fine. I don't think that's sensible. It's not the driver's fault that the mechanics started working on the car.
Yeah.
So, overall, a good result for Iwasa, who won the feature race. The final podium was Iwasa, Pourchaire, and Arthur Leclerc picking up his first F2 podium. What does that do for the standings?
Iwasa first, Pourchaire second, I think.
Yep.
The rest I didn't care about.
Iwasa leads the way by 8 points from Pourchaire. So Iwasa's on 58 points, Pourchaire's on 50. Fred Vesti is in third on 42. And then Boschon is fourth on 33, having failed to score any points this weekend. And Arthur Leclerc moves up to 5th. The rest is pretty much as was. I mean, Zane Maloney moved up a bit, but if you want the full rundown, it's on the F2 website. Formula 3. Oh my God.
I haven't seen anything to do with Formula 3 this weekend.
Just go watch the highlights. Oh my God.
I was going to, but that's like...
mental.
What?
What time is this?
Formula 3 started at midnight.
I could have watched it. Yeah, it was about midnight, 20 to 1. I could have watched it, but that, nah, I'll go to bed.
It was amazing. It's just chaos. Anyway, qualifying. Also, there is drama in Formula 3 that we need to hang on. Let's see if we can get that one. There we go. That one. That article. Who was it? Oh yeah, it was Pepe Marti. Survived exactly 9.5 corners before running wide into the gravel and straight into the barrier on the exit of 10, which brought out a red flag pretty much instantly for the qualifying session. He was pretty gutted, as you can imagine. There were also several other incidents in qualifying where people hit the wall. So literally go and watch quali highlights, go and watch the sprint race highlights, go and watch the feature race highlights. It's all chaos and it's all incredible. It's all worth a watch. I might just go and watch it again just for the giggles. Gabriele Bortoletto qualied on pole with Gregoire Saucy in second and Gabriele Mini in third. Top 12 gets flipped for the sprint race. So Sebastian Montoya was on provisional pole for the sprint race. Now, bear in mind, there's 33 cars in Formula 3. 23 of them finished. Actually, 26 finished. 3 were disqualified, including the race winner, Franco Colapinto.
I think I saw that about that.
Yeah.
Because it gave Zach O'Sullivan his first.
Yes.
Yeah. And Paul Aaron third.
Yeah. I mean, Montoya finished second, so it wasn't dreadful for him, but, you know. Gabriele Mini fourth, Dino Bogdanovic fifth. But Colapinto and both of his teammates, Mari Boyer and Johnny Edgar, were disqualified from the race as it was a technical infringement. Pieces of bodywork were found to be outside of the regulatory limits, contravening Articles 1.3 and 2.5 of the tech regs. Modifications to the geometry of the parts in question are prohibited by the rules outside of basic repairs. Basically, they fiddle with the suspension a bit. Not allowed. So all of their results got removed. Then we had the feature race. And oh my God, it was like Nikola Tsolov had a target on his car because every single graphic at the top for under investigation was someone else and Tsolov. It was like 4 separate ones that came up. It was what was going on. Now, I'm looking at the feature race ones, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 summons for causing a collision.
For Solov?
No, just everyone.
Okay. I was going to say, Jesus Christ.
They were just taking out Solov.
Which one's Solov? Is it 9? Yeah, okay, so car 9 is Nikola Tsolov, and he's 1, 2, 3. Yeah, he was summoned on 3 separate occasions for alleged forcing a collision, causing a collision. He was also slapped with an offence of forcing a driver off the track class, for which he was given a 10-second time penalty. Yeah, so 5 drivers were penalised post-race of the feature race. There's Luke Browning received a 5-second time penalty for causing a collision with Franco Colapinto. Stewards determined he was at fault, but predominantly at fault. So that drops him out of P8. Oh, drops him down to P8, sorry, in the final standings. Dino Bogdanovic was handed a 10-second penalty for a collision with Caio Collet. Stewards found that the Swede was at fault for causing a puncture to the Van Amersfoort racing driver. Means that he falls to 13th in the final classification. Mari Boyer has been given a 10-second penalty that has been converted into a 5-place grid drop because he didn't finish. Go and watch the highlights to see that one, because that's a big shunt for a collision with ART's Nikola Tsolov. PHM's Roberto Ferrier has been awarded a 5-place grid drop for an incident with Solov at turn 11. The stewards deemed the Brazilian wholly responsible for the contact. And Kalen Frederick received a 10-place grid penalty for driving erratically. The stewards found that the ART driver was responsible for the collision with Solov at turn 3. How many times would you like to be hit? How his rear suspension survived that, I do not know. But who was it? It was somebody had come out of the pits. Oh, it was in F2. Somebody had come out of the pits on cold tires, gone straight on into the braking zone, over the gravel, got back onto the track and spun. Then as they've tried to spin it on the grass, tapped the wall. At which point I went, his suspension's busted. But he kept driving.
Oh, was that
was the second? Yes, second safety car.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Because it was it Nissani's car on the inside that had already pulled over after a crash? One. There was another car already on the inside, and just as he's going past it, the suspension fails and dive bombs him into the wall on the left. So he was quite lucky not to hit that stationary car. But I've completely forgot about that. Got to bring it up because I called that. The way you tapped the wall, I was like, nah, suspension's gone. And then you saw it and it went. The rear wheel literally just went.
Nah.
Game over. So, yeah. Formula 3 was chaos, but it was a great watch.
Formula 3 doing Formula 3 things.
Exactly. Can't wait for them to go to Monaco.
Oh, God.
Anyway, feature race results. Podium was Gabriele Bortoleto, Gregoire Saucy, and Gabriele Mini. All of them drove pretty fantastic races. Gregoire Saucy was in DRS range on Bortoleto for pretty much the whole race, but just couldn't seem to close the gap, which I think is a phenomenal effort from Bortoleto there. All that said means that he's 2 for 2 on feature races, is Bortoleto. So he's extended his lead at the top of the championship. Gregoire Saucy's in second after another reasonably strong weekend. Bortoleto's on 58 points. Gregoire Saucy's on 38 points. Dino Beganovic is in third on 28 points. And Gabriele Mini moves up to fourth, also on 28 points. With Beganovic winning out there on countback. So, yeah. We will next see Formula 3 at Imola. What about Formula 2? Where are we next seeing them?
Baku.
Yes. Next time out in 4 weeks. Hooray. So much fun, guys. So much fun. I can't wait. So thank you for listening and or watching to our roundup of the chaotic, I think is underselling it, events of the Australian Grand Prix weekend. We will be back next week with something to be determined. It might just be a news episode. Who knows?
If there's any.
No, dude. Or some carnage. Don't you worry about that.
But anyway.
Add a little bit of spice.
We will see you at the same time next week for more Formula One podcasting action.
Yeah.
Goodbye.